Hello my beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. For those that are new, my name is Nelly. How many of you know that they have to do something but they keep procrastinating? I know it's very hard. Today we're going to be talking about when God gives you assignment, what do? Do you run away from it, or what do you do about it? This reminds me of the book of Jonah. In no doubt is one of my favorite books because I can relate to it, and I'm sure so many of us can relate to it, whereby God will tell you to do something and you choose to run. We start this book by introducing Jonah. I mean, this guy was a prophet and he was called by God to go to Nineveh and deliver a message because that city was just corrupt. And Jonah thought to himself, I'm not going to go there. Instead, he traveled the opposite direction. I mean, who does that? Jonah, of course, does that. The people in that city were very wicked. In this story, we'll constantly see how Jonah goes against God. I don't know about you, but I find the story very relatable in our lives from the beginning up to the end. Many of us know what God has told us to do, but instead we go in the opposite direction without realizing that whatever you do, it will cost you a lot, physically and emotionally. You end up making the wrong decision, invest in the wrong business, and you end up losing money. You even marry a counterfeit because you couldn't wait for God, and that mistake ends up costing you a lifetime misery. The message that Jonah was called to do wasn't easy, and his disobedience came with a lot of challenges. Your disobedience may come with a lot of challenges too. You end up marrying this person and you become miserable for the rest of your life. Jonah took a boat with the hope that he was going to be safe, but the storm was too much. Even though that storm was too much, he was sleeping. Now what happens when you become guilty or something is just eating you up? Your best bet is to sleep, right? So that you don't think about it, because when you're asleep, you're in a different dream. You're not even thinking about it, but sometimes you may dream about it. The people around him couldn't understand, how can you sleep when there's so much storm? Eventually they got to find out that he was the cause of the problem, and he admitted it. Of course, he decided, okay, you might as well just throw me into the sea. It's okay, I'm better off dead. How many times we always say, I'm better off dead anyway than just living this misery. He ended up in a shark or a fish. That's not clear, but he was there for 3 days. I'm sure he was not happy when he realized that he was still alive. So he ended up crying to God, which goes to show that you cannot hide from God. No matter how far you run, you cannot hide from Him. You end up doing what you are not called to do. Maybe you're in this job because of the money, but at the end of the day, you do not have peace, even though it gives you a lot of money. You may justify your reasons to God that you're a very good person and you're probably giving to the poor, but that's not what you're called to do. Your obedience has affected a lot of people by you making the wrong decisions, but they will have to support you, even though you invested in the wrong business and you lost everything. Jonah was a man of God with a lot of weaknesses like most of us. Sometimes you may think you're right by doing something, and yet you're just complicating things. You may have all the excuses in the world like Moses, but that won't move God. So whatever that excuse that you give to God, He may not be moved. So there are things that God may want you to do. Sometimes we're not even aware of them, but He does give us options. There are consequences that comes with that. He will not force you. He'll give you a choice between life and death, between a curse and a blessing. You have to choose if you know your assignment. There are people that their things are not working out because of the wrong choices that they've made. And some is because they've just neglected their assignment. A lot of us confuse this. We think that your assignment has got to do with ministry. Sometimes it's not about ministry. Sometimes your assignment is not about ministry. It's the things that you're doing right now. The things that you are called to do. You may go to a university because your parents want you to go to university, and yet you are gifted in sports, and everyone around you tells you and confirms that you're just natural. Everything to do with sports, you are just gifted. But because your parents don't believe you can have a career in sports, they force you into medicine or even law or even being an accountant, and you become miserable for the rest of your life until you change that job. Because that assignment that you were called to do was given to you even before you were born, and someone could have benefited from it as well. Sometimes we run away from these assignments because we're thinking, how are we going to survive? We have that fear of the unknown. And without even realizing that the more you run, the more you're delaying your assignment. But God will wait for you, just like Jonah, who was protected for 3 days. God waited for him. He eventually understood that he has to call on to God. There's nobody else that can save him in this situation right now. Just like all of us, when we are in a bad space, that's when we call on to God. Because we've just realized that we cannot do it on our own. And yet when everything is good, sometimes you don't even think about God. Yet He's the one that made you to become who you are. Most of us only remember God when we are stressed, when things are not working for us. Sometimes God will allow the bad things to happen to you in order for you to seek Him in this place of isolation when everyone else has disappeared. This is when He gives you a chance to seek Him. When He has removed all those people that might distract you. He does this for your sake in order for you to hear Him, so that you don't get distracted by those people around you that may make you change your mind. Because sometimes the people that we surround ourselves with, including our parents, even though we do tell them that God has called me to do this, God has called me to go somewhere, they will always try to talk to us so that we can change our minds. Because sometimes it benefits them for you to be in that place, even though it doesn't glorify God. God has told you to leave. We always have to remember that no matter how difficult the situation is, God is always with us. But most of the times we forget these things and we only go to God when things have gone worse. It's normal. We're human beings. We always want more evidence, even though we see the evidence. Like the children of Israel. They had all the evidence, but they still make those mistakes. So how can you know that God has given you an assignment, and how can you embrace it? You know that it's an assignment because it has a task for you to do. Even though you may not like it, or you may not want to do it, but when God has given you that assignment, He will keep reminding you by speaking to you in your spirit. And you will know, and you won't have that peace because He will keep reminding you to do it. No matter how long you may run, sometimes you'll have to eventually do it because God will stop everything that you are doing in order for you to take over that assignment. Why would people leave their white-collar jobs and go and do something that is not paying? And as much as you avoid doing this because you're thinking, how am I going to survive? You'll realize that eventually when you stop doing that thing, you'll be at peace and it will provide for you because God's hand is in it. So this is when you have to start embracing it and stop running. If you don't know what your assignment is, ask God. Ask God, what is your assignment? You can speak to Him. Most of the time we think that we can only speak to God when things have gone worse, and yet you can speak to God about your daily routine. Sometimes He will show you in a dream. If you don't understand it, ask Him to clarify it. Then you have to surrender your call and be willing to agree. Don't come in there 50%. You have to come in full force 100%. It will be difficult at times, but don't become a Jonah when you keep the assignment to yourself and you choose to run, even though you know you're delaying what God has planned for you and the destinies that the people need to benefit from that assignment. People that their destinies would have been changed if you chose to listen. So thank you for watching, and see you in the next video. God bless you.